Hello. Thank you for adapting to the challenge of switching from classroom-based instruction to distance learning, and for your flexibility giving me the chance to adapt as well. Part of the process for me has been learning best practices for online instruction, to include making lectures available on video. This is my first attempt at recording a video lecture, so thank you for participating in the experiment. You'll be happy to know that in preparing for this, I did learn to keep each video short. I also learned to rely on our textbook publisher where I can. They've got the multimedia experience that accidental online instructors like me don't. So expect to see assignments in Connect that include videos. Also expect me to refer you to videos to cover various topics I think you should see. I'll check Connect before trying to record my own. In Chapter 8, we introduced techniques for evaluating investments such as new product lines, purchases of land and buildings, and replacing or upgrading equipment. Of course, the text made it very clear that net present value was by far the best technique. You need to know the others. Internal rate of return, profitability analysis, and payback period, because they're widely used in business, and they may be more useful in communicating the results of your analysis to non-financial managers. And really, as a financial manager, you're usually providing decision support to someone else, who will make the actual decision. That someone may be the CEO, the company owner, or your client. So the analysis you do, no matter how hard you work on it or how much relevant detail you include, is only useful if you can communicate the results and conclusions so your intended audience gets it. And in some cases that may involve giving them a rate of return on the project, or telling them what the profitability of alternative projects might be. So go ahead and use the other techniques when you need to. Just know the limitations, and the text does a good job of explaining them. How do we apply this in practice? My recommendation is, when you're using the other techniques, calculate the net present value anyway, the way it's laid out in the book. If nothing else, that'll serve as a sanity check on, say, your IRR calculation, and it should alert you to situations where IRR or profitability are not the best fit, and if the results should be similar, they should be reasonable using any of the methods. But if you're not, doing the NPV analysis will tell you that, so you can adjust using some of the options that are laid out in the appendix. Chapter 8 was mainly about applying the NPV equation. We calculated NPV given a set of information. Essentially all we had to do was plug it into the formula, almost like we did when we were working story problems in algebra class. So the cash flows were given to us. Essentially everything else was given to us. None of that happens in the real world. So we've got to start learning how to figure out how to establish those inputs ourselves. And in Chapter 9 we start doing that. We cover how to identify cash flows, particularly how we can pull the information we need out of financial statements and other documents, and identify what information we need and what we don't. Then we use the information we need to evaluate alternative investments. Now, to help us learn the material, I'm doing two things. First, I'm creating a forum, and unlike the previous ones where I've asked questions and asked you to answer them, you get to ask the questions. I'll set it up to the extent that Sakai needs me to, and then open it up between today, Wednesday, April 1st, and Wednesday, April 8th. It'll be open in that time frame, and I would like you to ask at least one question relevant to the Chapter 9 material. And then I would like you to read questions that your fellow students have already submitted, and help them out with the answer. I'll check in about once a day and moderate. If I see a need for clarification or redirection, I'll do that. But have some fun with it. The second thing I'm going to do is assign the mini case at the end of the chapter. Here you get to calculate NPV on two mutually exclusive investments using the information provided. The first one, you're going to have to evaluate a fairly extensive data set to determine the NPV of the potential contract to supply duffel canvas to the Navy. So you'll need to calculate operating cash flow, net working capital, and the tax impact of various actions needed to start up the project, supply the canvas, and wind the project down when the contract is over. The second thing you'll need to do is also using the information provided, determine the NPV of selling the currently idle plant and the land it sits on. Now that's a mutually exclusive investment because the company needs that currently idle plant to they need to retool it if they get the contract with the Navy in order to be able to perform. So they've got a choice: either accept the offer to buy the land, or continue with bidding on the Navy contract. So you're going to calculate the two NPVs, and based on that you're going to draw a conclusion and make a recommendation to Mr. Tarr on what the company should do. Have fun with it. Good luck, and I'll talk to you again soon.